The Tesla was parked in Mom's driveway, its metallic blue paint catching the late afternoon sun. I'd driven it to Sunday dinner without thinking much about it. I owned 3 cars, and this one happened to be the most practical for the highway drive to Mom's house in the suburbs. I was helping Mom set the table when my nephew Tyler came running in from outside, his 8-year-old face flushed with excitement. "Aunt Jenna, is that your car out there? The blue one?" "It is," I said, folding napkins. "It's so cool. Can I sit in it later?" Before I could answer, my sister Lauren walked into the dining room, her expression already arranged into that particular smile she wore when she was about to say something cutting disguised as a joke. "Tyler, honey, that's not Aunt Jenna's car. She borrowed it from her boss for the weekend. Isn't that nice of him?" The room went quiet. Mom looked up from the roast she was carving. My brother-in-law Derek glanced at me, then quickly looked away. Uncle Paul paused mid-reach for a dinner roll. Tyler looked confused, but Aunt Jenna said, "Tyler, go wash your hands," Lauren said, her voice still light but firm. After he left, she turned to me. "I mean, it's a Tesla, Jenna. We all know what you make at that little nonprofit job." I worked in property management, not at a nonprofit, but I'd stopped correcting Lauren's assumptions about my career years ago. "It must be nice having a generous boss," Aunt Sharon added, passing the green beans. "Back in my day, we had to buy our own cars." Derek laughed. Uncle Paul chuckled. Mom said nothing, focusing intently on slicing meat. I set down the napkin I'd been folding and picked up my purse. "Where are you going?" Mom asked, finally looking up. "I just remembered I have an early morning tomorrow. I should head out." "But we haven't even eaten yet," Mom protested, though her tone was half-hearted. "Save me some leftovers." I smiled, the same calm smile I'd learned to wear during years of family dinners where my life choices were dissected and found wanting. "I'll pick them up next week." I walked out without another word, feeling their eyes on my back. Tyler was coming down the hallway, his hands still wet from washing them. "Aunt Jenna, where are you going?" "I have to go, buddy, but next time you visit me, I'll let you sit in the car. Deal?" His face lit up. "Really? At your house?" "At my house." I didn't live in a house. Not the one they knew about, anyway. They thought I rented a small condo downtown. They never actually visited it because every time they came to the city, they stayed with Lauren in her house on Maple Street. The house had helped her buy 3 years ago, when her credit score wasn't quite good enough for the mortgage she wanted. I drove home in silence, the highway stretching out before me. My phone started buzzing around mile marker 43, text messages in the family group chat. I didn't look. By the time I pulled into my actual driveway, the one attached to my real house in the private community 30 minutes outside the city, I had 17 notifications. I ignored them all, went inside, fed my cat, and tried to focus on the documentary I'd been meaning to watch. At 10:47 p.m., my phone buzzed with a direct text from Lauren. "Don't forget the house payment is due on the 3rd. Can you have it in by then?" I stared at the message for a long moment. The house payment. As if I were the one living in her 4-bedroom colonial on Maple Street. As if I were the one who'd needed a cosigner 3 years ago because my debt-to-income ratio was too high. As if I weren't the one who'd structured the entire deal so that I owned the property outright and she paid me monthly installments that covered my costs plus a small profit. I typed back, "Everything will be settled." Her response came immediately. "What does that mean? Just say yes or no." I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop and pulled up my property management files. Maple Street. I owned 6 houses on that street, though only Lauren knew about her arrangement with me, and even then she didn't know the full extent of it. To her, I'd simply helped with the down payment, and she made contribution payments to me until she could refinance in her own name. She'd been planning to refinance for 2 years now, always finding some reason to delay. The truth was simpler. I owned her house. She was essentially my tenant with a purchase option she'd never exercised. And not just her house. When I'd started buying properties 8 years ago, I focused on one street in one suburb because the area was undervalued and the school district was about to get a major funding increase. I bought 6 properties over 3 years, renovated them quietly, and either rented them out or held them for appreciation. Lauren's house had been my 4th purchase. When she came to me desperate for help, crying about how she and Derek couldn't afford to stay in their rental and needed to buy something before Tyler started kindergarten, I made her an offer. I'd buy a house outright. She could live in it and make monthly payments to me, payments I'd structured to be lower than her rent had been. When she was ready and qualified, she could buy it from me at a fair market price minus her payments. It had seemed generous at the time, and it was. But she turned it into a narrative where I was the little sister who'd somehow scraped together enough to help out, while she was the one doing me a favor by accepting. At family dinners, she'd make comments about how I was still getting on my feet, while she and Derek had really established themselves. The Tesla comment was just the latest in a long pattern. I closed my laptop and went to bed. Tuesday morning, my property manager called. "Jenna, I've got the new tenant applications for 4782 Maple. Young couple, both teachers, excellent references. Should I move forward?" "Yes, but let's run the full background check first." "No rush. The house doesn't need to be filled until next month." "Got it. Also, I wanted to flag that Lauren's payment last month was 3 days late. Not enough to trigger any penalties, but it's the second time this year." I'd noticed. "Make a note of it, but don't take any action yet." After I hung up, I sat at my desk and thought about Sunday dinner, about Tyler's confused face, about Lauren's casual cruelty. So practiced it seemed almost reflexive, about the 17 text messages I still hadn't read. I opened the family group chat. Most of it was innocuous, Mom asking if anyone wanted her old coffee maker, Uncle Paul sharing a news article about local politics. But there were 3 messages from Lauren, all sent shortly after I'd left on Sunday. Jenna left in a huff because we made a joke about her borrowed car low. "So sensitive, can't take any teasing. Must be nice living in fantasy land where you pretend you're richer than you are." Derek had replied with a laughing emoji. Aunt Sharon had written, "Young people are so touchy these days." Only Tyler's father, my younger brother Marcus, who lived in Portland and rarely came to family events, had said anything else. "Maybe we should lay off Jenna. We don't actually know her financial situation." Lauren's response: "Trust me, I know exactly her financial situation. I'm literally helping her stay afloat." I set my phone down and opened my email instead. There was a message from my financial advisor confirming our meeting next week to discuss expanding my real estate portfolio into commercial properties. Another from my accountant about quarterly tax estimates. A third from a contractor about renovation timelines for 2 properties I was updating. My phone rang. "Mom." I let it go to voicemail, then listened to the message. "Jenna, honey, Lauren said you're upset about Sunday. She didn't mean anything by it. You know how she jokes. Can you call her back? She's worried about the payment arrangement you two have. Just call her, okay?" I deleted the voicemail. An hour later, Lauren called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. "Jenna, this is ridiculous. I made a joke, and you're acting like I committed some crime. Can you please just confirm you'll have the payment in on time? I need to know for budgeting. Call me back." I didn't call back. Wednesday afternoon, my property manager called again. "Jenna, Lauren just called the office asking about her account status. She seemed concerned about something. I didn't give her any information beyond confirming her account is current. But she was asking some odd questions about the ownership structure of her house." "What kind of questions?" "Whether there were any liens on the property, whether you could take back the house, whether she was building equity." I stayed professional and told her she'd need to review her contract, but she seemed agitated. Noted. Thanks for letting me know. After we hung up, I pulled up Lauren's contract on my computer. The terms were clear. She was making payments toward an eventual purchase, but the property remained in my name until she either completed the full purchase or refinanced with a traditional lender. She'd signed it 3 years ago, reviewed by both our lawyers. The contract also included a standard clause. If payments were more than 30 days late, I could begin eviction proceedings as I would with any tenant. Thursday morning, the family group chat erupted again. "Marcus, can someone explain what's going on with Jenna and Lauren? Mom's calling me worried." "Mom, Jenna won't return anyone's calls. Lauren needs to talk to her about their house arrangement." "Lauren, their house arrangement? It's my house. Jenna just helped with the down payment." "Uncle Paul, family shouldn't let money come between them." "Aunt Sharon, Jenna's always been stubborn." I muted the chat and opened a new document on my computer. Started typing. Friday evening, I drove to Maple Street. Not to Lauren's house. I had no interest in a confrontation. I drove slowly down the entire street, looking at my properties. 4782 Maple, a young family, 2 kids, always kept the yard immaculate. 4791 Maple. Retired couple. Quiet, paid 3 months ahead consistently. 4805 Maple. Lauren's house. The lawn needed mowing. There were toys scattered across the front yard. 4818 Maple. New tenants moving in next month. 4823 Maple. Another family just renewed their lease for 2 more years. 4834 Maple. Currently being renovated, would be back on the market in 6 weeks. My street. Every single property. I'd never told anyone in my family beyond Lauren about the real estate investments. When I'd started, they were still convinced I was wasting my potential by not finishing my MBA. When I bought my first property, a foreclosure I renovated and flipped, they called it lucky. When I bought my second and third, they stopped asking questions. By the time I'd assembled my Maple Street portfolio, they decided I must be scraping by in some undefined way they didn't want to examine too closely. It was easier to believe I was barely surviving than to confront the reality that the family disappointment had quietly built something substantial. Saturday morning, Lauren showed up at my condo downtown, the one I kept as an office and occasionally slept in when I worked late in the city. She knocked hard enough that I heard it from my desk, where I was reviewing contractor bids. I opened the door. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me into the small living room. "Hello, Lauren." "Don't hello Lauren me. What the hell is going on? You won't answer my calls, you're being weird about the payment, and now I find out you own my house." "Like actually own it?" "You signed a contract 3 years ago. You knew the terms." "I thought it was temporary. I thought I was building toward owning it." "You are, when you exercise your purchase option. I can't afford to buy it outright. The market price now is $60,000 more than when we started." "That's how real estate works, Lauren. Properties appreciate. You've had 3 years to refinance. You never told me I had a deadline." "There is no deadline. You can buy it whenever you're ready, or you can keep making payments indefinitely. The contract is flexible." She stared at me, her face flushed. "Is this because of what I said on Sunday, about the car?" "This has nothing to do with Sunday." "Then why are you being like this?" I looked at her, really looked at her. My older sister, who'd spent our entire childhood being the successful one, the accomplished one, the one Mom bragged about to her friends, who'd struggled to accept that her younger sister had chosen an unconventional path, who'd needed help but couldn't stand acknowledging it. "I'm not being like anything," I said quietly. "You asked about the payment. I said everything would be settled, and it will be. Your November payment is due in 5 days. Either it's on time, or we follow the contract terms for late payment." "You wouldn't actually evict you if you're 30 days late." "Yes, that's what the contract says. You're my sister. I'm your landlord, Lauren. I've been your landlord for 3 years. You just prefer to think of me as your charity case little sister who somehow scraped together enough to throw you a bone." She stepped back like I'd slapped her. "That's not. I never. You told everyone at Sunday dinner that I borrowed my car from my boss. You've spent years making jokes about my little nonprofit job, my tiny condo, and how I'm still figuring things out. You told the family group chat you know exactly my financial situation because you're keeping me afloat." Her mouth opened, then closed. "You live in my house," I continued, my voice level. "You drive past 5 other houses I own every time you come home. You've never once asked me a single serious question about my career or my life because you decided years ago that I was failing and you were succeeding, and that narrative was more comfortable than reality. Jenna, your payment is due Thursday. Have it in on time." I walked to the door and held it open. She left without another word. Thursday came and went. No payment. Friday morning, my property manager called. "No payment from Lauren. Should I send the first notice?" "Send it. This is really happening. This is really happening." The notice went out Friday afternoon. Payment overdue. Grace period of 15 days before penalty fees apply. 30 days before eviction proceedings begin. My phone exploded with calls and texts. I ignored them all. Saturday evening, there was a knock on my real front door, not the condo, but my actual house in the private community. I'd never given my family this address. I opened the door to find Marcus standing there, his expression carefully neutral. "How did you find this place?" "I hired a private investigator. Cost me $400. He looked past me into the foyer. "Nice house. Really nice house." I stepped aside to let him in. He walked slowly through the main floor, taking in the vaulted ceilings, the professional kitchen, the wall of windows overlooking the private lake. "How long have you lived here?" 5 years. And you let them think you lived in that condo. I work in that condo. I sleep here. He turned to face me. Lauren is losing her mind. Mom is crying every day. They sent me to beg you not to evict her. And? And I'm not going to beg. Because honestly, Jenna, they've had this coming for years. He sat down on my couch without asking. I moved to Portland specifically to get away from the family dynamics, from Mom's favoritism, from Lauren's need to be superior, from all of it. I know. Do you also know that Lauren's been telling people she's basically supporting you? That she helps her little sister out financially? I suspected. She told her book club that you're struggling and she's been loaning you money. Mom believes it. Half the family believes it. I sat down across from him. Marcus, I own 6 properties on Maple Street. I own this house outright. I have 7 figures in investments. I don't say this to brag. I say it so you understand that nothing Lauren tells people about me is based in reality. He nodded slowly. Are you really going to evict her? If she doesn't pay, yes. It's going to destroy the family. The family's been perfectly comfortable destroying me for years. They just did it quietly, at Sunday dinners, in group chats, and comments to their friends. I'm just being honest about my boundaries. We sat in silence for a moment. For what it's worth, Marcus said finally, I'm proud of you, what you've built, how you've handled all this. Thanks. But I'm also worried about Tyler. He's a good kid. He doesn't deserve to be caught in the middle of this. That got to me more than anything else had. Tyler, asking about the car with genuine excitement. Tyler, who'd never been anything but sweet to me. I'm not trying to hurt Tyler, I said quietly. I know, but Lauren's panicking, and when she panics, she doesn't make good decisions. Just think about it. That's all I'm asking. After he left, I sat alone in my living room and thought about Tyler, about Sunday dinners and family group chats and borrowed cars and assumptions, about Lauren's house and the payment that was now 8 days late. My phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. Please, I'll have the payment Monday. I'm sorry about everything. Please don't do this to my family. I looked at the message for a long time. Then I typed, payment due by end of business Monday. Late fee waived this once. But Lauren, my name goes on the deed as sole owner, and you need to stop telling people I'm struggling. If I hear one more story about how you're supporting me, the next late payment starts eviction immediately. Are we clear? 3 minutes passed before she responded, we're clear. I set down my phone and walked to my window, looking out over the lake. Some lessons cost money, some cost pride, and some cost the comfortable lies you tell yourself about the people you've underestimated. On Maple Street, the lights were coming on in houses I owned, in lives I'd helped build, in a neighborhood I quietly transformed while everyone assumed I was barely getting by. My street, my properties, my life, and finally, my terms.